There is, though, a more obvious flaw with the famous Nazi prediction.
Best farouche de faim. With the hunger of wild beasts, they will cross the rivers. Most of the world will be against Hister. The great man will find himself paraded inside a cage of iron.
The Nazis claimed it predicted their victory. But they actually lost the war. This has proved no obstacle to supporters. They now claim that all along it was meant to predict exactly that.
Now, this quatrain is fascinating because it not only shows what is going to happen to Hitler, but also to Mussolini, who ended up being hung upside down in a cage of iron, i.e. a burnt-out garage near Lake Como in Italy with his mistress. The hunger of wild beasts, they will cross the river, refers to the Russians who crossed the two rivers to get to Germany. The German child understands nothing implies they did not understand what would happen to them as a result of following Hitler. So I think the quatrain holds together pretty well.
Nostradamus' words, it seems, can be constantly reinterpreted as events change. The problem is that he hardly ever put a date on his predictions. And when Nostradamus did put a date, he tended to hedge his bets. The Great Fire of London prediction, for example, doesn't say 1666, the year of the fire. It merely says 66. Critics say this vagueness increases the chance that events will seem to fit a verse, and the laws of probability mean that even unlikely events will eventually happen, if you give them enough time. Richard Wiseman is one of Nostradamus' fiercest critics.
So we're going to play Nostradamus roulette. In normal roulette, you place your money on a number, there's a single spin of the wheel, and if your number comes up, you win. But Nostradamus, when he made his predictions, didn't say when they were going to happen. So in this version of roulette, you choose a number and then you keep on spinning the wheel until you win. No.
Like a gambler, Nostradamus was relying on the odds going down over time.
No. Hey, red 23. Exactly as I predicted. So there you go. That's the great thing about Nostradamus roulette. If you give it long enough, you always win.
Sometimes, though, a verse of Nostradamus seems to fit an event so perfectly and spookily it's tempting to ignore such logic. So what does this mean for the eeriest prediction of recent times? The one about 9/11.
A fire from the center of the earth will shake the towers of the new city. As a result, two great rocks will fight a long war. Until Arethusan Springs bloody the river afresh.
This is what supporters say.
Well, every line has links to the 9/11 disaster there. Will shake the towers of the new city is more or less self-evident, but the new city was in the new world, and Nostradamus was fully aware of this at the time.
Critics, though, say this is simply a misinterpretation of Nostradamus.
There's no reason why new cities should be New York. There are lots of cities in the world with new at the front of them. Quite a lot of them actually mean new city, and the major one is Naples, which comes from Greek Neapolis, meaning new city, and it's what Nostradamus normally means by new city.
Fire from the center of the earth, that's the petroleum that was the basis of the explosion.
This is the major eruption of Vesuvius, Mount Vesuvius, next door to Naples, in the early 11th century, at a time when the Normans were invading southern Italy from Sicily.
So why would Nostradamus write a verse about an eruption near Naples which happened well before he was alive? The answer lies in his method of prophecy. As an astrologer, he always began by studying very specific events in the past. Then, believing history was cyclical, he assumed similar events would occur again. In other words, Nostradamus's verses refer primarily to events not in his future, but to those in his past. And that's true of all his verses, including those thought to be about 9/11.
And what one needs to do in looking at a verse like this is to say, well, what is it referring back to? Because virtually all Nostradamus' verses are referring back to historical events or whatever.